Hey gang, welcome to Bonthas and Brews. My name's Brian, and today we're recapping our first session of the Long Arm of the Hutt campaign. As we're doing it, we're going to go ahead and be drinking a passion fruit gosa. So I've had this one over the weekend. I really dig it. If you like gosas, it's really pretty close to your nice standard gosa, uh, but it's got a little bit of the fruitiness with it. The nice thing is with like the passion fruit, it's actually not that far off from your standard Gosa taste. So the other thing is if you never had a Gosa, this would be a good one to try because it's not that out there. Some of them, like there's the watermelon one, I think, that I had that I wasn't a big fan of. And then there's some that are a little bit more limey. But this one here, it doesn't mask a lot of that natural, the flavor that you have with just a straight Gosa. So if you never had a Gosa, they're not malty. They are not hoppy. They are, I don't even want to say yeasty, but they're like aromatic a little bit and salty. Not like super salty, but there's like this kind of salty background. Um, Remembering from like the batches that we used to do, there's very little salt actually added into it, but the amount of salt that you add really gives a kick. I think it was like a teaspoon and a half or something like that for a 5 gallon batch, somewhere around there. Wasn't a whole lot when we brewed them previously. This one here, they are always really light in ABV, unless somebody does some sort of bastardized version. I'm sure there's one of them out there. I think this is like 4.5%. I'm sick of spinning a can around, so I'm just going to get back to drinking the delicious Gosa. This is from Perrin Brewing Company. This is the only beer I've ever had from them. So it's Michigan beer based out of someplace along the western side of Comstock Park. There we go, Michigan. So it's the only one I ever had from them, and I highly recommend it. So this might be a little bit longer session because I have to talk about the characters, and we had 3 different stories bounce around. So I'm going to try to kind of blast through it. I'm going to kind of high level the stories, not go into much detail as I normally do, but we will try to keep it underneath the 20-minute mark. So the characters, we had 6 out of 7 players there. Jose couldn't make it. Had some work obligations here. So I don't know what his character is yet. We should hopefully have it in the next week or two. Hopefully he makes it. But until then, we have Don, who's playing Posh is, I think, what we're actually going with the official term or pronunciation from the beginner box. So he's a human smuggler, and I believe the subtype specialization, there we go. Specialization is pilot. We have 41 Vex, who is going to be played by non-evil Tim. He is a droid colonist with a doctor profession specialization there. Evil Tim, on the other hand, is playing Q3F10, also known as Quifio, and he is a droid bounty hunter gadgeteer. He is a Sith battle droid that was kind of blown apart and rebuilt by some Genosans with like a food processor and a food replicator and a satellite, a weather satellite. So he's got some little weird stuff going on there. Mark is playing Sans Seraph, who is a Twi'lek slicer technician with the specialization of slicer. And the thing that I think is really cool about this character is this was his character that he had from the old Star Wars Galaxy games MMO when that was around. So he had a bunch of screenshots from back when he played it. His little character portrait is a screenshot of that character there. So that's I think pretty cool there. Aaron is playing Tibbs. I don't know if we actually got an official pronunciation. I think Tibbs is what I'm going to call it, though. He's a Devorian, so the devil type guys, hired gun mercenary soldier. So he's kind of he's our upfront, in your face melee type guy, while Q3F10 is more of our ranged guy. And then Anthony is playing Vrish Greshot. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. He's a Rhodian technician, outlaw tech. So those are the players, the characters. That's what we have going on there. Really pleased with the balance. I think we already kind of have like all the niches filled there. It's going to make for some really good split party situations there, because going in like the Star Wars world, I know you can do this with D&D as well, but like from a Star Wars point of view, the storytelling is a lot of party splitting. So I'm trying to embrace that mechanic a little bit more than what I did with D&D. It's going to cause a little bit of people kind of fading out in the background at the table, which is going to have to be something I'm going to have to balance and make sure I keep everybody involved and keep the story moving for everybody. But it's going to be an interesting challenge that I'm excited to try. So this session, we kind of had 3 stories that are going to eventually blend together. Some of them already started blending together, but even though this is not going to be in any sort of this happened, this isn't chronologically. This is kind of in the story here. So we're going to start with Vrish, because I think his is the least complex of these stories thus far. So Vrish, he is, I think Vrish is actually female. The Rhodian technician, so the outlaw tech, working as a mechanic on a. So let me back up here a little bit. So this takes the story takes place. We're starting off on LAotH. LAotH is the homeworld of the Twi'leks, and we're starting kind of with the focal point on being on Posh and Vex, because they're bringing in a person, Ba'uraban, who was captured by a bounty hunter that they stole the ship from. They're returning him in exchange for some more fuel, fixing the ship up so they can hurry up and get on their way. So that's where we're at there. So I will say about the ghostes, these are very unbeer-like, so much that my wife even enjoys them. So if you got somebody who's not a big fan of beers because like hops or malty or anything like that, try one of these. Okay, so Vrish. Vrish is the technician acting as a mechanic in the spaceport in Nabit, which is the city on LAotH that Posh and Vex were landing in. And so he sees the cryo thing, which is it's the same model as the Millennium Falcon, which is I think a YT 1200, I think. But it's far more beat to shit, very rusted out, a lot of systems not working. It does have, one of the plus sides is it has a ventral and dorsal turrets, so that's nice there. So it's got a little extra oomphy firepower. But so he's Fresh sees the ship landing, starts kind of trying to figure out what is he going to have to do to repair this thing. Just kind of spitballing here, and he can't quite pinpoint everything from just eye judging it, but he knows he's got a lot of work ahead of him. Going along the outside, one of the things that he found was the ventral turret wasn't working, and there was actually a restraining bolt that was not like wedged in there, but somehow fell in there that was causing the issue. So he was able to pocket that, and because he had a really good check on it, he got to keep the restraining bolt. So he essentially has a restraining bolt for whenever he feels like one of the droids are getting out of the line, or if they're in a situation where they got to bolt a droid somewhere in the future there. Going on, he also identified that, God, I'm sorry, we went through a lot of different like various mechanics checks. Check this out, check that out, look at the landing gear. There was the long-range communication antenna that was busted. He did really good on most of his checks here, minus the initial one to judge it out, which he didn't fail. Or no, he failed it, but he had advantages on it. So it's not, that was not really a big deal to fail that one there. Post that initial check, everything else, I think Anthony did, he passed pretty well. Forgive me here, I gotta change the way I was sitting there. And so even like when I tried to throw him off base, there was a scene here where 41 Vex and Sands were talking in the hangar by the Cryat Fang, and 41 Vex shouted stun grenade, and I was expecting to have Vresh fall off the top of the Cryot Fang. He was even able to hang on with that, and I think he hang on fantastically, even with a critical success, if I recall correctly. So, some key points here that he found is he knows that Posh and 41 Vex are not the owners of the Cryot Fang, and it was lifted from a bounty hunter named Trux. And sorry, there was a little bug in my face there. And he found the hidden smuggling compartment that had the Wookiee pelts. Couldn't help with that. Couldn't help not noticing that, I should say, because of the smell. So he's got a couple ideas on where he can go, things that he can help fix things up. There's a couple of repairs he did so well that he's going to get to boost the amount of money he gets to charge this shell corporation that's paying for this, because the people that are agreeing to pay are actually a group of activists. And so the money that's going to get over to Vresh, because he did some of these repairs so well, because he really fit into his role here in this situation, he's going to get some extra coin on those. So for there, though, we're going to pause on Vresh's story. We're going to go to Quifio, and then I'm going to try to knock that one out and try to stay underneath the 20-minute mark. It's going to be probably over that, though. So Quifio is not actually in Nabat. He is in the town Numir. There's a little bit of confusion with that at first there. Part of it was my fault because I said, hey, everybody's in this town, and then I changed it and said, no, Quifio's in this town. And I did that because Numir is kind of suffering right now. And so him having, right now, the main drive of him is this food processor, he said, talking with Tim previously. So he's kind of working through helping the citizens out there. And some of the highlights from that section there, there wasn't a lot of checks involved in Quifio's storyline. There's a lot of role play, though. So he wound up dialing random holo calls, and he just started rattling off the menu. And so we dubbed it, he was doing the menu phone. He just called up people and say, here's the menu that he has in his food replicator right now. And there was some guys that didn't like the idea that he was messing on their comm channel. And so they came into town looking for him. They didn't look for him very long. He did spot the guys that were looking for him. They went to the bar, got drunk, and then he called them over like, hey, I have tacos. And he wound up making a sale. But he rolled really poorly. And was it that he failed with some advantages, or he passed with... No, he passed with some threats is what it was. So he made some sales, but then one of the guys wound up puking on him. And instead of being grossed out, Evil Tim did the Evil Tim thing, and he said, oh, Quifio grabs all this up and puts all the puke in the carbon hopper to make new food for the next day. And we all said, nobody ever eat anything from Quifio. They're all going to eat from him, though. All of them. Well, maybe not Vex, but the rest of them will. The next day, Quifio went around. He actually did this the day before as well, trying to pull restraining bolts, because one of his main goals is freedom of the droids. So he's trying to go around grabbing all these restraining bolts, and it's not working. And unlike the previous day where he didn't get any of them, and he got spotted. So one of the guys called over technicians like, hey, this droid's trying to pull off some restraining bolts. Let's check them out. And, guys like, let's put a restraining bolt on this guy until we get it figured out. That didn't go over well with Quifio. So him being his food replicator guy, his main mode of attack or distraction or whatever was to spit coffee out on the guy's foot and then shoot out a cup. Kind of in reverse order. I can't think of it. There was a movie or a show skit where that kept on happening at like one of those old timey vending machines where the coffee kept on coming up and then the cup would come out. I don't remember what it is, and it's just going to drive me nuts until I remember what it is. Anyway, with that led to a small chase scene, and Quifio tried to hide, and as he's trying to hide, he did absolutely horrible. I think he did like 2 or 3 fails with a shit ton of threats. And so what I did instead or no, he something like that. Anyway, he failed. Let's just go with that. Instead of running away, he decided he to try to blend in by setting up shop in a bazaar and pretending he's a merchant. Well, he's the only droid merchant in the area, so he stuck out like a sore thumb. But he did make some sales. Oh, that's what it was. He failed with, I think it was like one advantage or something like that. So I gave him some credits. So, but that's where we left off on his storyline. So the more complex storyline involves Posh, 41 Vex, Tibbs, and Sans Serif. So Posh and 41 Vex, they arrive on the Baraban. He arranged for, in order for his release, because he was captured by Trex, the person who previously owned the Cryat Fang. In exchange for his freedom, he will allow or arrange for fueling and repairs of the Cryat Fang. And they agreed, so they land in a bot. From there, Bourbon leads them through the town. Vex does a little bit of shopping trying to find stun grenades, and Horus, yes, fails horribly. And people didn't like a droid asking for stun grenades, and so they wound up getting a tail. But because of Pasha's triumph with like advantages and successes, a really awesome roll, Pash turned around and wound up just shooting the guy in the leg. Pash said he wouldn't kill the guy outright, but scared away the tail, so you guys didn't have to deal with it. I don't recall if he actually shot him or just scared him away, but did that. And with that, you guys are let's go ahead into the meeting place. So, beer, then meeting place. So, go to this big warehouse, get in there, and you're greeted by the group of activists, as they're calling themselves. Very obvious that they are militants, but they don't like to say that. They're activists. The leader is Nin. I forgot to jot down the last name. It's on the website, so you can go to the Obsidian portal there and take a look and read all about it. She is the activist leader for this cell in the bot. It's a kind of for Twi'lek by Twi'lek, keeping the mines and that kind of stuff, the natural resources of LAotH in Twi'lek hands. And she lets you know, like, hey, we're taking care of your ship, but your ship is far more screwed up than originally thought. So you're going to have to kind of do us a solid while this ship gets repaired. You guys agreed. And so as you're doing this, kind of cut to a side story with Sans. Sans is trying to get off world. He's kind of botched a couple jobs. So he's trying to take a look and find a flight that might be going out and try to hook up with the crew. And he sees the Fang and runs a couple checks through the registry and that kind of stuff there. And he's like, these people are kind of shady. I can probably help them out. And I like shady folks. So he kind of waits around the Cryat Fang, scoping that out. Next morning, Posh and 41 Vex, they head up to the spaceport to meet Tibbs. Tibbs was hired on from Nin from another job, pulled a job from Nin previously. Shit got really hot when he blew up a mining facility. So he's kind of laid low for a couple days, and she said, you know what, pull this job, and I'll make sure you get off planet without any issue here. Tibbs agreed because he doesn't like being a wanted man on this planet. So they're meeting at the spaceport. Vex goes and runs and gets something from the Fang, meets up with Sans, and then heads off. And Posh doesn't even realize that Sans isn't, like, he thought that Sans was just with like the Resistance or something like that. Activists. Didn't think much of it. Anyway, go do some little bit of traveling. Speeder. Aaron was doing really good speeder noises, if I recall. I'm pretty sure it was Aaron. But you hit a couple bumps in the road. A couple people took some strain. But somebody, as we're like kind of going down through this slot canyon, you see this bug head pop out. You guys stop. Let's go check it out. Turns out it was a Gand in a group of, we don't quite know what these guys are. they were not too happy. They thought, or at least claimed, that you guys are real smugglers, and they wanted to, check you and uh, process you, that kind of stuff. There, as you guys are saying, no, 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 you're not going to do this. One of them shouts at that. They recognize Tibbs, and so they want to bring Tibbs in for a bounty. Combat ensues. A couple things about combat. I'm not going to get into the heavy hitting details of it because, like I said, I'm trying to keep this on the shorter side. We're at the 20-minute mark right now. Initiative, a little bit weird, a little bit harder for everybody to get used to. I still got to figure out when to use cool versus perseverance, I think it is. I got a pretty good idea on it. One's like you're surprised or you weren't prepared for it. The other one is you're patiently waiting for the combat, that kind of stuff there. But also getting people kind of a little bit more oomphy on the turn order, because it's PC slot, and then your enemies. So people determine when they're going to go. You have your slots 1, 2, and 3 defined, and so player A can go in slot 3 or whatever. It's a really cool mechanic, but it takes a little bit more communication than like coming from D&D initiative. The other thing is the first hit I did on a player, I critically hit Tibbs, and these bounty hunters had something that the first time they critically hit somebody, it counts as 2 critical injuries. So right off the bat, Tibbs got 2 critical injuries against him. That hurt. One of them was that he suffered a setback on all his brawn and agility checks, so like combat shit. And the other one is he can't get any boost die. Both of those were for the entire encounter. Not good. Ooh, forgive me. There's a little bit of healing there that went on. And I know it shouldn't have really happened, but I allowed for one of the, critical injuries get healed mid-combat because of just trying to hurry up and get through the combat, and 41 Vex wanted to do a little bit of healing, that kind of stuff there. Would have been nice to have the whole party there for the combat, but I like that we're kind of going to be blending these stories in versus just you're at the bar. Combat is also tougher than what I remember from the beginner's box game. Part of it could be that we were kind of trying to rush. Part of it could be that we didn't have a full party. Part of it could be that we only have one really offensive focused character versus 4 very offensive focused enemies. I was trying to go with what the campaign adventure suggests, which was 1 per 1 enemy per player there. So we had 4 versus 4. Okay, that sums up our first session. Really excited to get into this. I had a lot of fun. I think everybody else had a lot of fun with it. Towards the end, people got into interpreting the dice rolls by themselves, and I really liked that, and I want to continue that. I want to get people going. Really good uses of the force die or the destiny points, but we got to get a little bit more into I'm using this destiny point and it's causing this, granting me this, versus I want to upgrade my die. So I'm gonna go because this is already super long. Talk to you guys later. See ya. Bye.